All right, welcome everybody to the NWO show, recorded live on Twitch, later syndicated to YouTube, and so on. I want to thank everybody for coming to the show. Those that don't know me, my name is Ep8. I'm a former semi-pro FPS gamer. Additionally, got a background in politics and data science. So we're going to be. I also want to introduce McLeod here, my co-host. McLeod, go ahead and introduce your background.
Oh, cheers. Yeah. Hey guys. My name's McLeod. Obviously, I am a professional audio engineer and content developer, and I've pretty much I've been playing obviously sort of PC games and the like for like most of my life. I think a lot of people can kind of relate to that in that regard. um, MMOs and especially raid MMOs as well. And I'm actually a 10-year vet of one of the most brutal and crazy MMO games out there, EVE Online, and that's where I actually met Ace.
So today we got two things to cover, and people are probably wondering what new could there possibly be after a developer says, "Hey, we're gonna go and take 10 months longer than we initially said to come out with a game."
I mean, there's not much that you can think of that they could say after that that would be like, oh, there's news.
So there is news, but we're gonna save that for later. First, I want to talk about how this delay was taken by the community. Um, Now, try as I might, I can't get Reddit to display the rest of the, the rest of this poll because I tried, can't do it. It's just annoying as hell. Um, but I know exactly what they say, so here it is. Top one. So this poll is basically asking, what is your reaction to the game being delayed, or how do you feel this is going to affect the game, basically? 314, no questions asked. I feel this is good for the game long term. Okay, that's one. That's larger than all three of the negative responses as a whole. So, the second option. I feel upset that I can't play the game on schedule, but that it's good for the game. So that's a pretty interesting statistic right there. Uh, Now, keep in mind this is 880 people. This is not, and this is a poll on the R New World Game subreddit. Uh, so um, pretty decent cast of the net here to get some opinion. Um, Now, the 71 votes. I'm upset that I can't play the game on schedule, and feel the choice to delay is not worth it. Of course, the cloud. This is why I don't install things. It's just I've broken it.
just don't highlight stuff and click things.
How do I turn it off? Highlight mode is on.
Just
I turned it off.
just just just,
Go
get back.
away. Go away. Well, that's highlighted from now on. So
Okay.
that's the thing. Okay, so
This does not reflect Aza's particular choice in this particular poll.
this is why I can't have anything nice. Um,
This,
this is just par for 2020. Um,
this is
yeah,
why we can't have nice things.
this
Aze.
is yeah. So, anyways, there are 43%, or there are 43 people, not percent, uh, that feel the choice to delay was wrong regardless of the reason. Um, I think that's interesting. Like, I I can see where they're coming from because the philosophy behind that must be, why did you set a release date if you're not going to hit it? Um, why not
especially if
give
you
yourself the time to begin with? You know, and I think that's where
especially
some
if
of this.
you yeah especially if you're going to be especially if you now feel like you've fallen short of it by an entire year
Yeah.
or close to an entire year.
Yes. So we're gonna go and look at the top couple of things. So now, obviously, I'm the one of the moderators for R-New World, so I have a few buttons that you probably haven't seen if you normally are on Reddit. The remove spam, block, etc. Um, I've got a few other ones if I post that I can do some fun stuff with. But we're not here talking about Reddit moderation. We're here talking about the game. Um, so I think this is some valid criticism here. Hard to give an informed response when AGS refuses to share design goals with us outside of buzzwords and vague concepts. So I think that that
Yeah,
is valid criticism. Um, I have long stated that I think that their marketing for the game needs depth.
some work. Yeah.
Um, like I've been a huge proponent of trying to get gameplay out, and I have begged and screamed and threw hissy fits and the whole works. Um, and we got the IGN video, which I think was very well done. Um, two videos actually on IGN. One was the extended siege where they kind of played it with each other, and then there was the developer interview, which also had a view from the siege. And then we actually managed to pull a third video, which IGN accidentally uploaded, that actually was the wrong video, and because we caught it in the first like 5 minutes before IGN pulled it down, and we managed to download it in that time in high resolution, uh, you know, we're we're like that. We can just kind of do those things.
And the
Um,
reason why we're able to actually like just showcase that is because we literally got in touch with AGS about it and said, you
that's
know,
this video.
is there yeah, so it was basically like, is there a reason, particular reason why it was taken down, why it's like, being restricted? And, they were actually pretty decent at letting us know particularly why they didn't want that to be shown and, let us know if we did want it to be shown, what to do. And that's the reason why you see certain aspects, certain, you know, uh, show iconography in certain areas of the screen. That is basically to remove the issues that they had with that particular video.
Um, to answer or to comment on the thing in Twitch chat here, the chat could look better. So there are some editing abilities for the chat system um, that that I'm sure that they'll probably bend on, especially for like accessibility purposes and stuff like that. Because that's pretty standard at this point to include some abilities to change and modify the chat system to make and stuff like that. Um, and of course, I think one of the other things that's pretty standard across games nowadays is like colorblind systems, red green
Yeah, very much
deficient
so.
systems. So it wouldn't surprise me if those were also added by release, if not in the game. I'm not colorblind and or red green deficient, nor do I have a problem reading the current chat. So I have not had it, but haven't dived into those settings. So, anyways, I'm gonna let this video play out. We do have another poll um, that I wanted to cover that I think is pretty interesting as well. Um, the This poll is whether or not people refund it. Now, So you assume the gameplay is a recording? Yes. Um, this is recorded from somebody who's actually playing. It is a I think it's one of the devs, um, and this was part of a video that was on IGN, but also isn't on IGN. And there's a whole story. If you want to hear that, go back about 5 minutes. Um, so there's a poll on one of the subreddits that has 1,800 responses. And I think there's an actual get the actual number 1.8k. Um, that's a little bit annoying. So I could add all these up. So the delay is actually it building up. Um, so that's just the casting abilities and stuff like that. Um, so talking about refunds versus not refunded. Now, out of 1,800 people, 504 said that they refunded the game because of the delay. 858 have decided to stick it out, and 474 are undecided on whether or not they're going to refund or not. So, in terms of people who actively hit the button, if statistics are true and people aren't trolling and blah blah blah, and they didn't figure out that hey, there's going to be this thing coming up that all the pre-orders get to play the game in on August 25th for a duration of time that they have not announced yet. Um, those are likely our undecideds. They saw that and went, I don't know if I'm gonna play it or not. We'll see. But the 858, I think, is a pretty interesting statistic for the majority of people felt that hey, still gonna follow this, still gonna put my money into it. The people that ordered, I think one of the important things here is that if you ordered it on Amazon, you weren't actually charged any money, and your pre-order is basically like a bookmark that when the game releases will charge you money. If you ordered the game on Steam, Steam holds on to your money for the short term, and if you refund before it comes out, you get the full amount. If you refund before like 2 hours of gameplay, before after the release, then you still get your money back. But they do take your money, so this could be a factor of one, the economy, two, you know who did what in which program. Because obviously, if you ordered on Amazon, you don't really have an incentive to change your pre-order status. Um, unless you're just upset, which all's fair. Um, versus if you did it on Steam, you might have an economic incentive there to say, hey, you know, like for me, I've got the deluxe edition, $50 tied up. You know, now I've kept my pre-order. You guys can see. I can't see this poll because I'm playing the video. My vote was for sticking it out. Obviously, I'm still here. I'm still making content. I'm still, developing videos and talking with people over the internet about the game. Why not? It's a fun game. It's a cool concept. There's a lot to it, um, and I think that it's especially now that they're going to throw another 10 months of development into it. I think that it's going to be a really good game. So I also said earlier that I felt that this was probably the best choice for the game.
I mean, personally, I'm sticking it out because I have done the whole early access, you know, like beta access thing previously in with previous MMOs, and so I can completely understand, you know,
Yeah,
why some people would basically be very shy at essentially wanting to
Hey, thank
basically
you for the follow.
go that route and go through that situation again. Because being in an early access situation, you're never entirely certain whether the game is going to actually resemble what was promised, or essentially even make it to alpha, because there's ones that basically end up in perpetual early access slash beta and never actually appear in the out as a release game, and they just end up basically just um cannibalizing their sort of their client base, the people who essentially give them money to carry on this beta access, this early access kind of stuff. And as I've said, I've been burnt by that in the past few times. The reason why I'm fine with sticking through this is because it's Amazon, right? Then they're not like it's not like Amazon's game studios are pandering to a bunch of investors, or are basically selling microtransaction stuff in order to actually carry on funding the development of this game. Like, it's they have the resources, they have the support there by Amazon to
And they've
take this
probably got
another
to be
year.
the only studio out there that has the ability to sit there and say, we've got a product that we could launch, but it would be better if we launched it later.
Well, there are some other game studios that could do that. I'm not, because
And I suppose
they're
EA could do that.
generally,
They just don't have the balls to do
yeah,
that.
yeah, they don't generally tend to do that. And like they the thing is with EA is EA isn't a bunch of game developers first and foremost. Like, they're a bunch of they're, well, not really a bunch of investors, but they're a bunch of businessmen, right? And businessmen look to short and medium term profits, for the most part.
Yeah.
So, this is the reason why you will see, NBA 2K and all of those kind of, like, games basically being the closest rehash to something that they've already got, with a few advancements or with a few sort of graphical updates, and then just a whole bunch more microtransactions and like gambling, like kind of mechanics to essentially carry on, like, wringing all the money out from their customer base that they can, right? That's the difference between someone like EA, who's a publisher first, in it for the profits, and an actual game development studio like Amazon Game Studios.
So I want to answer a question from chat here. Has anyone gotten any official information about why the announcement was so sudden? Something seems like something went terribly wrong, or a legal issue came up. So let's talk about the development process. Um, so for those that haven't been watching since the beginning, I've got a background in data analytics, and I build Power BI dashboards and Tableau dashboards, and my team builds Power BI dashboards and such for other different. Hey, thank you. For other different areas, other different offices. So we have stakeholders that are not us, that are the end user of the product. So how this works is you start having meetings with them, um, and you get a concept for here's what we need. Then you start scoping that project, and you start determining here are the minimum viable things that we need in the game before it launches. Um, you start building. You go back. You start building a minimum viable product. You have a couple of design meetings with them. Maybe including a few of them in the process, so you can start seeing some of the parallels with New World versus just a data analytics product. This would be the equivalent of an early alpha test. Hey, is this the right direction? Are we going the right way? Is something fundamentally wrong with what we have, or can we continue this way and people be happy with it? Well, this is where all of a sudden it turns around and you start getting feedback that says, hey, we need to change something. This is, the majority of the feedback's coming back, and they're like, hey, instead of using you know, you've got a black background, we really want like a blue background, you know, um, but the rest of your design is based around this black background. Now, that's kind of a simplistic way of putting it, but compare the black background to the always on PvP. Fundamentally speaking, you have to change a bunch of other things because maybe you had blue font and stuff like that. So if you change to a blue background, all of a sudden, hey, all of these other little things have to change as well with it. So now you've got a delay. So the end of Alpha 1 hit and they went, we got a problem. Feedback feedback's coming back in droves that hey, this is an issue. So now we got to change. And for those that followed the studio closely, they were very close to announcing a launch date after in about the middle of the first alpha. However, they backtracked, and there was a Amazon page that was up with a FAQ for about 3 hours that was removed because it wasn't intended to be launched, but people saw it. Hey, and it basically was like, oh, beta is going to be this time from this time, and all that. So there was an intended launch date, but they never actually announced it. There was no public press or anything for the first alpha. Something clearly went wrong, and they went, we need to go back to the dashboard, or we need to go back to the basics and figure out what we actually need to do to make this so that people will use it. So they went dark, and they went back into their development, and then they went, okay, we are ready to show what we have. Let's get people excited to use the product a little bit, and let's start bringing in people to try it out. So, hey, we've made some of the changes based around your feedback. What do you think of this? And this is why they have an NDA, because they want your honest opinion and they want to play stuff off of you and they want to see how things actually are interpreted and all of that. That's why the NDA is there, so that they aren't tied to anything specific. Because if all of a sudden you started streaming the alpha, you're going to sit there and have people expecting 100% of what they see when you're still in a process of changing it. So through that feedback, you sit there and go, like earlier, there was a mention that hey, the chat system could use some work. It could look better. Okay, so they read a few comments on the forums that say, hey, the chat system could have X, Y, and Z to be better. So, they also get the after game feedback surveys. They get people reaching out to them, etc. There's a bunch of different ways that they're going to gain feedback. They're also going to get the metrics and all of that from the server side analytics to this. So you get all this feedback. You're going to start changing some of the systems so that hey, they like this, they don't like that. Let's try and fix these things. And they admit in the release update that we're taking input from our alpha audience and listening to what they enjoyed or didn't, and they're making changes. So from there, then you get towards a point where you're going, okay, we're getting ready to release this. We've got a date. We've got a schedule. We're committed to hey, this group wants this, and this is what we feel the minimum viable product could be. So here's where things can change. You start having meetings towards the end. Hey, is this exactly what you want? Well, it would be better if it had this, or if it'd be better if it had this other thing. What if we expanded these features? What if we did this? I feel like it's too small. I feel like there's not enough. Is this in depth enough? Is this got everything it needs? When you start having those discussions close towards the end, eventually you have a kind of brass tacks meeting where it's, hey, this is the reality. This is our choice at this point of, if we launch now, is the customer going to be happy with what we give them? Or do we turn around and say, hey, some of you would be happy with what you've seen. You've stated that you'd be happy with what you've seen. You're enjoying the game, etc. Which explains a lot of the people out there who are defending the game and saying, hey, I would have loved it to release. I would have loved it to release. I felt it was perfectly fine. That said, I'm not everyone. So, and I'm also not in the mindset of sitting there thinking that there's a studio out there that's willing to take an additional year of time and put that into the game. Because in a prior episode, I talked about how much that time is actually worth, and that time is actually worth about $10 to $15 million. So that's a pretty sizable investment. Um, so
And it's something that you can't just straight up go, oh yeah, that's an option on the table.
yeah, not to
Like
mention the fact that
the
that actually doesn't include the marketing material and the marketing push that they've had for the game. Some people would argue, hey, there hasn't been enough. I wouldn't disagree, but there's a lot of opportunity for them to expand on that. But what they did spend is also wasted then, because suddenly they've got a different date. They got to change all the movies. They got to change all the etc. that says, hey, the release date changed. But prior to that release date change, they're going to have a meeting that literally is, if we launch now, what is our assumed player retention? Versus if we launch later with X, Y, and Z features additional to what we have, is this going to give us a better end result? A better adoption rate from the user. That meeting generally happens towards the end. Unfortunately, that also means that they've got a lot of build up to it, and all of a sudden they went, to everyone else, they're sitting there thinking they just pulled the plug right at the end, and now we got to wait 10 more months. To them, they probably were having several meetings like this of, can we fit this in time? Can we do this? If we do enough overtime, can we make this work? And eventually you sit there with all the puzzles of, I just don't see how this all fits together. Then you probably have this last meeting where the decision's made, and you got to make the justification to your boss that this is the end choice. And at some point in time, Rich Lawrence, the studio director, who's also the person who posted the release update, stated this wasn't the time. We need more. We can have a better product than this, and we can make it work. Now, there could be any number of factors into it. If anybody wants to argue that Crucible wasn't a factor in that decision, I will gladly talk your ear off about how, yes, of course, it is a factor in the end decision. They, of course, want a game that is successful. They don't want another Crucible to launch where, hey, this is a big thing. Now, that said, it's also important to note, and this is going to get into some super semantics about Crucible, that Crucible is not actually developed by AGS. It's a whole. Anyways,
it's a different studio. It's
is
like
it is a
it's like
different studio,
basically
kind of under the same umbrella, but not. Amazon's basically the publisher.
yeah.
Um, it's the difference between who wrote a book and who published a book. Now, 90% of
Gotcha.
people don't give a shit about the difference, so I'm gonna move on. Um,
Mm.
so
That's fair.
this is where they've got to turn around and make this end decision of, we need to determine how much, if we were to add something to the game, how much time do we need? How much money can we afford to put into this process? And how long, how much frustration is this going to add into the system? But also, um, but also kind of what they feel is going to get the best results. So you've you've got some other factors there as well. So like World of Warcraft has an expansion coming out. You've got several other expansions from other games. You've got a couple of other major releases coming out at a similar time as this release is going to be. So moving the game might also have been played into factor there, even though they would have picked that date at a prior time, knowing those release dates. But they want to get far enough away from that date, but they also want to get close enough to where they are that they're not spending money they don't need to. Um, you know, kind of is what it is. I know that's a super in-depth way of describing this, but that's kind of the reality around the process. Now, I too am upset that hey, last second plans changed. I mean, you guys can see it. The channel is named after New World. Like, the channel is literally named after New World. Like, clearly there's
There was
some
a
plans here.
clear
Um,
intent with what this channel was for.
yeah, you know, so it's important. Um, Now, so they talk about in the last paragraph here. They talk about we're passionate about the game and we've been making and want to add more features and content before we share it with a wider audience. Um, I'm going to take the opportunity here to find exactly what I'm looking for because, and of course, it's never on top. It's always got to be some obscure oddity. Um, I'm looking for the map. Um, for those that don't know what I'm talking about, there has been a released image of at least part of the map. Um, and it's never where I look, ever.
Never is, dude. Like that's the thing about it. It's the thing about something that you really want to find, like quit, like immediately. It's never where you think it is.
Why we can't have it there. Um, I'm gonna have to Google it here. So they released part of an image of the map, and I'm going to bring it up because um, they released it as part of the Steelbook for New World. Hey, you order the game or you order the collector's Steelbook, put on your shelf. Inside um, comes with this image, um, and I'm going to flip our media screens around here. Comes with this image. So now, from what you can see here, you can make some assumptions about how the map is and isn't. For people who are, got a background in cartography and stuff like that, you can tell the difference in between mountains and rivers and grass areas and trees, large amount of trees and the differences there. There's some oddities here as well. But the most important factor here that most people are not going to pick up on and realize that there is a clear and obvious design decision here is that the entire map is not filled in. So making the assumption that this is releasing with this is making the assumption that this is releasing with collector's edition map of Eternum, the world of New World, designed by the art director, blah blah blah, no game included, blah blah blah. So because it's only $10. So pop back over to the map here. Now, um, pause for a second. I'm super jealous that you just got your New World hoodie and shirt delivered. For some reason, mine has a delivery date of like August 14th, and I've called them twice about it, and I'm like, and they won't let me cancel the order either. So I'm like, anyways, back to the map. Um, so
My order delivery is not possible. So
true, yeah. So you'll notice that there are parts of the map that are not complete. So why would they send out a version of the map that is not complete? It would be reasonable to assume that on launch, this is likely the map. That is assuming, hey, this is what we have planned. Now, taking that into account, you can think, hey, the game is fundamentally built around a open world concept, which means the more people there are, the more NPCs there have to be, but there can only be so many people per square foot, or per square mile, etc. Before things get uncomfortable. There can only be so many runs out there. So a good example of what I'm talking about here is in map design. So some people will say that, hey, it's, there are no dungeons and there are no, instanced events. Um, there are, but that's a different story because you get the arenas and stuff like that. Um, but you have the ability to make raid like events in the open world that'll require a team, require stuff like that. And it's relatively easy to do. You just have to understand how to build a map and how to build a raid map. Now, players could do it in both directions. So looking at this little mountainous area here, we're gonna continue to zoom in. Of course, it bounds away from where I'm looking at. So
Oh, of course.
dead center, you see this kind of path up into the mountains. Um, you know, comes up all the way over to the side, then back over deep into the mountains. You know, it would be reasonable to assume that understanding map design, that this is probably some sort of higher end event or raid of some kind that you're going to have a clear start on the edge of this path near what looks like a white snow area. Um, Again, using basic cartography logic here. Goes up into the mountain and around, and you probably have to fight NPCs the whole way up, and there's probably a nice juicy prize at the end of this. You know, so
It's understandable.
you know, hey, that's pretty cool, right? Well, how many groups of people do you think can run that at the same time? So, let's say you need 10 people to run this. Just ballpark. 10 people to run that thing. Now, you get halfway through, the NPCs at the beginning have probably started to respawn. So, you probably get a second group starting to run through as well. So, maybe you get 20, maybe you get 30, maybe it's long enough for 30 people to run it simultaneously, where the NPCs are coming back and stuff like that. So, understanding that, you're limited by space. So that's one area of the map. I won't call it small, but that is one area of the map. Small comparatively to the rest of the map. But if you expand out this whole area, and obviously there's stuff hidden behind the steel book itself, how do you go through the process here of you know building out enough content, enough points of interest, enough interesting bits to keep people entertained, interesting raids that, have bosses that, are fun to fight against and stuff like that. So now we go back to this area that's not filled in. The area that turns, this light brown tan color. Um, it would be safe to assume that future expansions are likely going to expand into that area and grow the amount of potential content in the game through that method. Kind of like um, basically just adding new territory to go through. But in doing so is going to create more opportunities for more points of interest, which are more possibilities for more content for people to run. And there's theoretically no limit to the size of this. So they could, over the next 10 months, focus on let's make this map huge. They could take the map here, and I wanna put this out there to note a couple of things. We have maps from before in the first alpha that were released through some of the gameplay videos. So we're gonna go ahead and pop one of those up to explain to you guys exactly how things have changed between the two.
Oh yeah.
So this was released on their Twitter at one point in time. Now, this and that, you will note, are two very different maps. Now, that said, there's a larger gray area on here. There's parts that are not necessarily included. But even the areas that are different. So that's a pretty important distinction. They have rebuilt large portions of this map to accompany things like the settlements and stuff like that. And you can see the settlements and stuff on the map if you look closely. Again, cartography being what it is, hey, here is a nearly perfect circle in the middle of territory. What do we think that probably is? You know,
Like, you don't need to be an archaeologist to know that might
yeah,
be man-made in some way, shape, or form.
yeah. That's probably man-made of some kind. Now, is it a city or is it a fort? In the gameplay video, you saw a lot of the what do they call them? Like forward ramparts that are built into the ground, um, that are around the place. Would those show up on the map like these circles? Possibly. So, that's possibly a fort, but where would this corresponding city be? Um, we could dig through where all of the possible cities and stuff like that are, but I think it actually there's a pretty clear one here. Um, so right in the middle here, I'm gonna try and zoom in. Um, don't have a so I realize that I'm using a picture to cover a picture, but you can't see my cursor elsewise. So you see right here, there's a bunch of small roads and stuff like that on the map that don't show up elsewhere. So, like this is kind of an intricate mountain pass of some kind, maybe, or maybe, something else, but like pretty obviously, hey, there's something potentially here. I think this could be a city. So, you know,
Yeah, you also have one that's
yeah.
like on the edge on the right hand side as well, which
Yes.
looks
So,
very intricate as well. So that could be one as well.
now, here's what we
Left
know
and right.
about the sieges from the video that was playing earlier in this. You've got what's probably the fort here, but you've got something out in the grass. This is probably the tent that the attacking side spawns in. So I'm gonna dive away from the map here, and we're gonna play the video again, um, because I feel like that's the easiest way to describe what we're seeing is to just show you. And again, this
Yeah.
is using only, basic cartography understanding, and you can read this map pretty well. Um, so starting the video off, they're going around the ramparts and stuff like that. Um, can't see a lot of things for the first couple of minutes, so I'm gonna cover something else in the short term. Hey, thanks for the follow.
Hey.
Um, Now, on the map, you're also going to see things like some of the larger areas in the larger like points of interest that are going to look pretty intricate, uh, and might also look like cities as well too. Like because I mean, there's the ancient civilization that we know is there and stuff like that. Towards the top of the map, we know that there's a city up in the mountain, because there's a very intricate layout of streets and that up towards the peak of what is probably the Shattered Mountain, at the very top of the map. Um, so here in the video here's exactly what I'm talking about. You see the thing that he is currently standing on, and you notice that they are all around this facility. When I said, hey, these are probably the things that are around the fort and that the fort is inside that, that's what I meant. Uh, and when he turns to face the attacker's spawn, you can see a tent off in the distance. It's this huge tent facility. Um, it's for the most part actually obstructed by trees and very difficult to see. So I would say it's very hard to miss, but in fact, it's very easy to miss right now, because he's really just not in the right spot to see it. Um, so I feel like that's probably that. And we know that those two things are in proximity of each other, so we can make the assumption that, hey, that's a fort, and there's the attacking camp. So I know that that's a very long way of describing what you're seeing, but there's the important part here is that, hey, we're going back to what they said, we are looking to add content. So how do you add content? Again, adding space creates more room for content. So more regions, more capturable territories, more of everything exists the more space you put in the game. And one of the reasons I showed you the difference in between the first alpha map and this map is that they have clearly been able to make major changes to the map between the two. I think that it would be safe to assume that in the next 10 months that they're going to expand on what's there. I think that would be very reasonable. And in doing so, when you make the map huge, you're also going to want to start considering other mechanics like some sort of travel assistance. So this is where things like mounts, where they've talked about mounts before in not a dev blog, but I think it was a PC Gamer article where they said, "Oh, we don't have them in the game now, but if the players want them, we'll add them." Well, once the game is a certain size, in terms of it takes you forever to get across it, having a mount is probably going to be kind of an important deal if you need to do like cross the map type stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier. Um, but it's also something that you're only going to do if you know if there's a good reason to do it. Now, let's assume that this is the map as it is. You know, if the map as it is, the I was showing you the map with the steelbook. Um, let me just post this so that you guys just have this. I don't know why I'm like
Holding on to it.
holding on to it. Here's the actual image files. If you guys are curious about these images, we do have we've got a Discord, and like a lot of people get turned off on like, oh, join my Discord. I don't really care if you talk to me on our Discord. Like, you could literally just hang out there and just watch for the pretty colors and stuff, or the pretty pictures and all of that. We do have the largest collection of New World related pictures, images, videos, etc. on our Discord compared to everywhere else. We have hundreds. I think when I actually downloaded them all, I think we had like 600 plus images um, of and from the game, and concept art and everything else that has been released. So none of this is breaking the NDA. But if you haven't seen it all, there's some really cool stuff there, um, and there's some really cool directions that we could see them going with that stuff. Um, so diving back into what we were talking about, um, with the map size the way that it is, it might not have been worth having mounts. But if you expand that a lot more, to expand a lot more content options and stuff like that, it might be a situation where you sit there and say, oh, you know what? Maybe we actually need this in order for, again, going back to the prior discussion before that, for a higher adoption rate from the end user in terms of player retention. Hey, it's a real pain in the ass to walk across the map. Well, hey, maybe we should have put mounts in there. They'll enjoy that more. It gives them something to collect. It gives them something to be proud of by getting rare mounts and all of that. And like World of Warcraft, there's like competitions. I think I've watched. Starts with an A. I'm gonna slaughter his name because I can't remember exactly how it's spelt. But he's a streamer who does competitions for who has the most mounts. And he's won several of them, but there's a number of times where he'll get beat by somebody who just has like super obscure mounts that he could only get for a certain amount of time, and through this super rare event, and have a super low drop chance, and that they clearly had to grind their ass off to get all of them. You know, but people do that, so it gives them something to work toward. Yes, that's the name. I'm not going to try and pronounce it in chat. It's ASMONGOLD. Fun videos.
Asmongold.
Yes. Great videos. The guy makes good content. You know, I'm not saying obviously not paid by him or anything like that. Just hey, I've watched some of his stuff. It's good stuff. If you want to see mounts and stuff like that, and like people who have a shitload of them in WoW, it's a good channel to go to. So that would add something to the game. Now, if you add mounts, now you've got to add a system for how do you get them. So you can see how it's no longer a simple, hey, we want to add mounts because we've expanded the map. Now we need to add mounts to increase our player retention. But now we need to add a system for mounts. How are they used? What's their effect? How is their implementation for PvP versus PvE? How is their implementation for industry? You know, loading down your horse with a bunch of stuff. Uh, you know, is it going to make it faster or slower? Is it like there's a whole bunch of design decisions there that need to be brought into account because let's say you're in PvP and you're flagged for PvP. You've got your horse. You're mounted up. You're ready to charge into the fight. Somebody shoots your horse. What should happen? From a design perspective, does your horse have enough health to take a shot? Does your horse buck you off? Is there some sort of reputation system with your horse that it might be able to gain additional systems and stuff, or additional health while or resistance while you're riding it that you might have to take two shots, or maybe it doesn't buck you off. Maybe that's a design choice that you choose. Maybe it does. Maybe it just straight up dies, and you have the permanent loss of the mount if you lose it in PvP. Those are all design choices that have to be made after you make the decision to, hey, we want to add more content. Okay, we add more content, we add more space, we add mounts. Suddenly there's all of these trickle down systems that have to be affected.
And that you have to build as well.
And that you have to build. And this also goes into how do you summon your mount? Do you want to go World of Warcraft style where you can summon it anywhere? That to me is a little immersion breaking, but you know,
And the other thing is a lot of those games where you just summon mounts, like they're not actual multiplayer games. They're single player kind of like RPG games, and so it's very easy, in those sorts of systems to basically summon a mount, and the mount appears off screen, off camera, and and it's just there. It's great. That's a really helpful and useful system. But you can't really have that when you have multiple players in the same environment, because then it it's kind of immersion breaking that a mount just appears out of nowhere, like a horse just appears out of nowhere. Like, I know that there's some games where you have like a freaking like a special pocket where your mount appears out of nowhere kind of thing, but a lot of times developers only go to into that area when they don't have, or when they can't figure out a logical reason or logical way for a mount to get to the player who's calling it location. So there's all of these kind of considerations that you have to make when you're doing that kind of thing on a multiplayer level versus basically like a single player RPG.
exactly. And of course, it's made more complicated with the flag system for PvP. You know, can players influence your play while you're on a mount if you're not flagged for PvP? That's a legitimate question. Like, and those are all again design decisions. Um, one of the ideas Fatal Expressions brings this up. It should be summon at a stable in a settlement so you can get where you want to go. Now, I agree with that. However, now you've also added something else that they need to develop. They need to add a stable. So now you've got the art team involved. You've got an asset that they've got to build out. You've got another development system of, okay, hey, we need a system for how to select which mount you have. From a design decision standpoint, are you going to have your mounts available at every location? Or do you leave your mount at a single settlement? There's a lot of decisions there. So then it becomes, okay, hey, maybe I have a mount here. Maybe then it reinforces collecting mounts. You know, reinforces the gameplay loop behind that of, okay, I'm gonna go get a bunch of horses because now I need one at each of the stables all around at all the different outposts. So you can see how like one design choice here trickles down into a bunch of others, and then you get super intricate in its implementation. And these are all the discussions that take a long time for developers to have. And I want to knock on the COVID delay here for a second, uh, and mention a lot of these are off the cuff meetings, and they're based around this idea of, hey, here's here's this concept, and then it's an open discussion. I'll be the first one to say an open discussion on Microsoft Teams is a real pain in the ass. Like, it just is. People have background noise. They've got all kinds of other shit going on. They've got their kids running around in the background, and you lose a lot. Because you got people that just mute their mic, and hey, thanks.
Start to when you're doing when you're working with Microsoft Teams and people with different microphones, different different webcams. If you even if you're even doing sort of like quick webcam conferences and stuff with people, like, you really start to appreciate that in actual fact, like the capability of like the human body and the human experience, and being able to just filter out bullshit from just having a conversation with somebody when you have to deal with like somebody's really terrible microphone or really shitty camera.
Exactly. Now, the other thing that a lot of people will understate is the value of the drop by meeting. So if anybody's ever worked in an office, you occasionally will, you'll walk into the office, you'll see somebody and it'll jog a memory. Hey, I need to talk to them about this thing. I, you know, it might be related to something they're working on. It might just be something that, hey, I want to run this by you, and I haven't seen you in a while. You know, and you lose that opportunity to, oh hey, you know, this makes a lot of sense. What do you think about this? You know, and you don't get that with the Microsoft Teams environment, the Discord environment, the WebEx and Zoom meetings, etc. You get a lot of, "Can you hear me? Oh shit, I was muted. Oh, sorry, you missed this incredibly elaborate point that I'm now going to present in not as good of a way as I said it the first time." You know,
Suddenly, when you're having to, like, reply to a team member about, like, through text, like how to fix their, like, their audio problems or their video problems, like suddenly the kind of the spontaneous thing that you wanted to ask sort of like either loses its spontaneity, or you lose, like, the kind of like the direct question, or the kind of like the point that you were going to make or going to ask them. Like, it ruins that creative flow.
well, and it might even ruin the enthusiasm you have for this at the moment. Like, oh, hey, I'm pumped up to talk about this thing. You come up with this super elaborate thing, and all of a sudden you realize you were muted for the last 5 minutes. Like, fuck. Yeah.
Not that we've ever experienced that in terms of being muted and not realizing.
Yeah. Like, we've had absolute perfect intros to this show before that were not recorded at all. In fact, we actually had a perfect episode once. Perfect entire episode, and not a single second of it has audio. And it
Massively
hurts
frustrating.
inside every time I think about it. So, I hope that kind of gives a good idea of what they're intending to do. Now, they go one step further, and this is for those of you guys that have stayed from the beginning, and I said that this was going to be the last thing they covered. They left a nugget at the end of this that I think a lot of people missed. First, it reinforces the direction they're going because of certain things. Second, it's a pretty ballsy move. And third, it's a lot of people involved. So, as a thank you to our community, this is their words from the release update, and I'll post the link in the channel here so you guys can see it. As a thank you to our community, we will be providing a special opportunity for our beta sign up and pre-order customers, plus our alpha testers. Thank you. To play the full game of New World in its current state for a limited period of time starting on August 25th. So again, read that through from start to finish here. As a thank you to our community, we'll be providing a special opportunity for our beta sign up and pre-order customers, plus our alpha testers, thank you, to play the full game of New World in its current state for a limited period of time starting August 25th. We'll send an email directly to those customers detailing the process to participate. We're confident that you will find the game has as much promise as we do, and will understand why we want to take extra time to make this experience the best it can be. So, they're basically saying we have enough confidence that we're going to let all of the beta signups up to a certain date, and all of the pre-orders, plus all of those that have already been chosen for the alpha testing, to play the game in its entirety, in its current state. So what the alpha players have been experiencing, or maybe some bug fixes prior to that, or because I mean we still got a month and a half here. It'd be silly to say they didn't fix anything in the meantime, or didn't patch anything in the meantime. There might be more than what's there, but regardless, there's an important thing. This is a lot of people. Now, prior to this, an important thing has stood in the way of people understanding the game: the NDA. Like, I haven't been allowed to stream the game, despite the fact that I would love to stream the game. Shit, I got a YouTube channel around, or I got a YouTube and Twitch channel around the goddamn game. Of course I want to stream the game. Like, I would love to stream the game for 10 hours a day. It would be great. But we can't do that. We have the NDA. So, now, here is where I'm going to bring something up that was posted publicly today for the first time from the official at Play New World Twitter. Currently, the game is under NDA, so streams and videos aren't allowed. Heartbroken, I know. During our playtest mentioned in the New World update, hey, our release date is changing, blah blah blah. The NDA will be lifted, so you will be allowed to stream.
Mm.
There should be
And that
cheering
was
and craziness going on. Uh,
much revelry ensued.
yes. So now, if you're not part of the people who set up to sign up to beta test, if you're not one of the people of current alpha, but you have a pre-order, hey,
Guess what?
guess what? You're gonna be playing still, and you'll be able to stream it to your friends who don't. So they are confident enough in the vision that they currently have to do something that they have never done before for a massive audience, and let a massive audience play the game and
And view the
let
game.
the world see it.
Mm.
That's freaking huge.
Like,
Like,
you know, yeah, like you have to understand the difference between that and like like the people who are basically sort of like lambasting them about the fact that, like, you know, they're spending an extra year in development. Like, you know, if you're spending an extra year in development and you're not confident in your product, then you do not release it to be, you know, to people to be able to stream it, you know, to the world, right?
yeah,
Like, you know, you just don't do it. Like, you know, the game is not finished in any way, shape, or form, and you know, you don't want people to like to see something that you can't, you know, that you can't really, that you don't have confidence in, you know. Everything being there, or everything being at a level that people can be, you know, happy about. So
exactly.
you know, the fact that like they are allowing us to be able to play it and stream it is like massive in comparison to like their the confidence that they have in the product that they have already, let alone in a year's time.
Well, and I think it also speaks to the confidence in the vision that's there. You're basically what they're doing is they're saying, hey, we're going to add more to this in the direction that it's currently going. Here's where we're at. And publicly staking in the ground, boom, here's a shitload of material for everyone to look at and decide whether or not they want to stick with this for the next 10 months, or whether or not they want to get hyped or not. And they're setting the stake in the ground for, this is the direction the game is going. These are the decisions that we've made to get us to this point. We're comfortable with where it is, but we're going to add more to it over the next 10 months. That's a big thing for them to do.
Yeah,
And
and it's
I'm also
also
super thrilled.
yeah, it also means that we do actually get the ability to stream it to you guys.
Yes.
You know, for those of you that don't have, you know, either alpha access or, you know, you know, or purchased it and pre-order kind of thing. So so yeah, like in that for that, you know, and in that kind of sense, we probably should like get people, you know, get to know what people want to see, you know, and when they want to see it, and like, you know, kind of you know, like essentially our streaming schedule, right? Like, um, because I think it'd be a good idea for us to basically allow people to be able to experience playing New World vicariously through us. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
that's the least of what the least that we can do.
Oh yeah. So naturally, we will be streaming that event when it happens. Um, we're waiting for a few other announcements and stuff like that, and obviously we're going to be maintaining coverage on any events and stuff like that we can. Any public announcements about the game, we will come out with content. Like we're not going anywhere. I realize that hey, this is 10 months of content to now cover with um, a pretty large up until this it would be the same videos up over and over again for the next 10 months, which hey, we're going to have gameplay streams that are hours and hours long that we'll be able to throw up in between to say, hey, you want to see what this game's about? Here's what it's about.
And we can diagnose, like, with you guys, like, what your hopes and dreams are with, how, content can be developed, for New World, right? Like, because the whole idea is, is uh Amazon Games are going through and creating more like mid and end level content. So, you know having us being able to play it for you guys, with you guys can we can also, even after we finished, after the period where we can play the game is finished, we can still deep dive into into those videos and look at the content that's there, and how the content can be augmented or added to in order to better the experience for everybody.
Exactly. And I feel like there's going to be a lot to cover, and I'm excited about what changes they might bring. Because I feel like this development team has a lot going for it. Obviously it's got a lot of money going for it, a lot of money riding on the game. There's a sizable amount more that they're putting into it, and I think as well as they think, based on their thing here, that hey, people are going to enjoy what they see on August 25th. I'm excited that that experience is finally going to be able to be shared with people who are new to this, who haven't seen this. I mean, been following this for a very, very long time at this point. And for the people that joined the Discord, you can see, hey, some of these posts, not necessarily in the Discord, but some of the images from this have been, pulled from 2015, 2016 content that was developed way back then. Like we went back and found everything. We found the original YouTube videos, and they're up in one of the channels.
Yeah,
And we were able to
they
pull
don't even
those.
exist on YouTube
Yeah, they
anymore.
pulled those down. I had to get permission to post those. Because they were like, shit, we thought we got them all. you know, so those are in there. We've got all of the art in there. If anybody is curious about that stuff, it's all there. And if we're just hanging out in there, we'll answer whatever questions we can. That's you know, I like talking to people. I like talking to people about New World. Obviously, I can't break the NDA, so you ask me super specific questions, I can't really answer anything until this August 25th thing, because then we go super in depth and everything. But we can't talk about. So how the NDA works is you're not able to talk about the development process that you've experienced and your user experience outside of the times that they choose. So this August 25th event, hey, you can talk about your experience from that. That said, if you happen to know how in depth these mechanics go, you can show people that. Haha.
Hmm.
But you can also sit there and say, you also can't say, hey, in this alpha they told us this on the forums. Can't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Or it used to be like this.
yeah, you know.
Like
Now
we can
there are
we
some
can we
people that
can
do, but I value my relationship with AGS because it's my world, or my word versus the world. And for those that don't know what my background is, I work in emergency management, so my word is everything. People need to trust what I say. So violating contractual agreements
is
is
not something you can
contrary
do
to
lightly.
that. You know,
Oh yeah.
like that's an important thing. Um, so I think that's um, to each their own. Some people don't have anything to lose. They don't have clearances or anything like that that could potentially be called into question, and they don't have uh, as much risk. That said, hey, I like the game. I think a lot of the development staff have been really nice people, and I I think that it's going to be successful. Shit, I thought it was going to be successful if it launched in August. I think it'll definitely be successful if they add 10 months more worth of content. Heck yeah, you know. Now that said, we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. My voice is starting to go, uh, and I've worked
I
a,
do
a
wonder.
10-hour day today. I have been rambling quite a bit in this one. Uh,
Just a
you
tiny
know,
bit, but that's all right.
so one, I want to thank everybody for the bits, awesome. For the follows, awesome. For any subscribers, thank you very much. It's always awesome to get your guys' support. Um,
If you're listening to this, obviously after the fact, like say on YouTube and stuff, then you know, uh, you know, uh,
yes, YouTube,
consider subscribing if you like the content.
favorite, subscribe,
Like,
hit the
comment.
bell in both things so that you get notified when we're actually going live. Join the Discord so you get a message there. Um, and when
All
it comes to
that.
the YouTube audience, for the love of God, hit the like button because it's based on user interaction, and like the system will then put higher user rated content towards the top of the algorithm so that the content gets showed to more people and spread more widely. Hey, that's
Yep, it
again,
helps a
it's on
great
you
deal.
guys. If you like it, yeah. If you don't, that's your choice. Free world. Do what you do. Um, that said, that's all we've got for today. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Hope you stay safe, and we will see you in the new world.
Very soon.